At just 14 years old, Aiden Fucci brutally stabbed 13-year-old Tristan Bailey 114 times. Brenda Spencer, at 16, carried out a deadly attack simply because she disliked Mondays. Tyler Hadley, at 17, murdered his parents, claiming he wanted to do something that had never been done before. The Bever brothers, driven by their obsession with serial killers, slaughtered their entire family. This is a list of some of the most feared kids in US prisons, each guilty of horrific crimes that ensured they would spend the rest of their lives behind bars. Aiden Fucci. Aiden Fucci was 14 years old when he murdered 13-year-old Tristan Bailey on Mother's Day, May 9, 2021, in St. Johns County, Florida, United States. A resident had found the body of Tristan Bailey near a retention pond at the end of Saddlestone Drive. She had suffered 114 stab wounds, 49 of which were defensive. Her body had the word karma written on the inside of her left ankle and a smiley face drawn on her right ankle. A residential surveillance camera recorded two people walking east on Saddlestone Drive, linking Aiden Fucci to the scene. After the interrogation, while in the back seat of a patrol car, Fucci took images and videos, posting them on Snapchat. In one picture, he captioned an image, "We're having fun in a cop car," he said. In another sickening post, he typed, "Hey guys, has anybody seen Tristan lately?" A police report revealed that Fucci often spoke of his fantasy of killing people. Around midnight on May 10th, police searched Fucci's house, finding a sheath matching the knife near Bailey's body and blood-stained clothing. Fucci was arrested for first-degree murder after further evidence, and witness accounts revealed he planned the crime, and his mother, Crystal Smith, was arrested for tampering with evidence. Fucci, charged as an adult, pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder of Bailey. On March 24, 2023, at the age of 16, he received a maximum life sentence. After serving 25 years, he will be eligible to apply for parole. If you found Fucci frightening, the next individual on our list will astonish you even more. Ethan Crumbley. On November 30th, 2021, 15-year-old Ethan Robert Crumbley stormed Oxford High School in Oxford Township, Michigan, armed with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and killed 4 students, including a teacher. Surveillance footage showed Ethan Robert Crumbley entering and exiting a bathroom, after which he began firing in the hallway as students transitioned between classes. As students fled, Crumbley methodically walked down the hallway, shooting into classrooms and at anyone unable to escape. Due to the quick response of students and staff, he was unable to enter any classrooms. Students reported hearing a voice over the intercom, alerting them to an active shooter, prompting teachers to lock and barricade doors and cover windows. Some students initially mistook the loud banging sounds for something else, before realizing they were gunshots and quickly locking doors. At 12:51 p.m., police received the first of approximately 100 911 calls about the shooting and headed to the school. Within 2 or 3 minutes of the first responders' arrival, Crumbley was arrested, unharmed, by a deputy assigned as a school resource officer and a second deputy. Crumbley pleaded guilty to all charges in October 2022 and was sentenced in December 2023 to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 24 years. He is currently incarcerated at Thumb Correctional Facility. Crumbley will never experience freedom again, just like the next individual on our list. The Bever brothers. Robert and Michael Bever are the perpetrators of the Broken Arrow murders, also known as the Bever Family Massacre, which occurred on July 22, 2015 in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. They murdered their parents and 3 siblings. At around 11:30 p.m. on July 22, 2015, police were alerted to 709 Magnolia Court by a 911 call from 12-year-old Daniel Beaver, who reported his brother attacking the family. Screaming and commotion were heard before the line went dead. Dispatchers tracked the address and dispatched officers after failing to contact the father, David Beaver. Upon arrival, police forced their way into the house and found 13-year-old Crystal Beaver bleeding from multiple stab wounds. After pulling her out, they discovered Daniel Beaver and 4 others dead. 2-year-old Autumn Beaver was found alive and unharmed with Crystal inside the house. It was believed one of the brothers lured the victims by pretending he was under attack. Robert confessed to the familicide, revealing that he and his brother had planned the act for some time. They intended to commit a shooting spree outside the family, hoping to surpass the 1999 Columbine High School massacre and the 2012 Aurora Theater shooting. The brothers were arrested and charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of assault and battery with intent to murder. They were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. They are currently held at Joseph Harp Correctional Center in Lexington. Similar to the Bever brothers, the next individual on our list single-handedly committed a familicide. Nehemiah Griego. On January 19, 2013, 15-year-old Nehemiah Griego claimed the lives of 5 members of the Griego family, his parents and 3 younger siblings in South Valley, New Mexico. He first shot his mother twice in the face around midnight with a .22 rifle. When his younger brother Zephaniah woke up, Griego told him he had shot their mother and then shot Zephaniah once in the head with the same rifle. He then went into the bedroom shared by his 2 younger sisters, who were crying, and fatally shot each of them in the head. Griego waited for his father to return home from his shift at a homeless shelter and shot him 4 times around 5 a.m. He then drove to church with 2 rifles in the van and told his 12-year-old girlfriend that his family had been killed in an accident. When the pastor learned something was wrong with Griego's father, Griego stated that his family was dead, prompting the pastor and a retired homicide detective to drive him back to the house, but the detective called 911, sensing something was wrong. At age 15, Griego, classified as a minor at the time of the crime, pleaded guilty in October 2015 to 2 counts of second-degree murder and 3 counts of child abuse resulting in death. Initially deemed amenable to juvenile treatment, Griego was ultimately sentenced in August 2019 to 3 concurrent life sentences plus 7 additional years to be served in the Lee County Correctional Center with eligibility for parole after 30 years. Unlike Griego, the next kid on our list didn't plan on serving his life in prison. T.J. Lane. 17-year-old Thomas Michael T.J. Lane was the gunman of the February 27, 2012 Chardon High School in Ohio, where 6 students were shot, leading to the deaths of 3 and the hospitalization of several others. On the morning of February 27, 2012, many students gathered in the Chardon High School cafeteria before classes. At approximately 7:30 a.m., T.J. Lane opened fire, shooting 4 male students at one table and wounding another. Fleeing the school, he shot a female student and was chased out by a teacher and a football coach. Lane was soon arrested by police near his car. 5 students were hospitalized, with 3 dying from their injuries within 2 days. Lane was charged with multiple counts of aggravated murder and attempted murder and was later found competent to stand trial. In May 2012, it was decided he would be tried as an adult. In October 2015, Lane pleaded guilty and received 3 consecutive life sentences without parole. On September 11, 2014, Lane, along with 2 older inmates, escaped from Allen Correctional Institution in Lima, Ohio. He was recaptured the next day and subsequently transferred to a maximum security facility. The escape highlighted security concerns and brought further attention to the tragic case, leaving a lasting impact on the victims' families and the community. If you thought Lane was brazen, the next kid will have you on your toes for her actions. Roxana Sikorsky. On October 17, 2024, 15 years old Roxana plotted to kill her adoptive parents and stabbed her brother in the throat. Roxana, initially an ideal child, began acting out during adolescence and was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. Her behavior worsened after meeting Rivera on Facebook, leading to her running away and being found at his house. Her parents filed a statutory rape complaint against Rivera, which then was pending investigation. The reason he wanted her to murder her family is the family was pursuing rape charges, disclosed Leslie Posner, Roxana's lawyer. On the night of October 17th, Rivera allegedly waited outside the family's Plymouth Township home around 2 a.m. and texted his underage girlfriend instructions. The teen stabbed 12-year-old Lucas in the throat and attempted to stab her sister before fleeing. She was found at Rivera's Detroit home and told police they planned to marry. Rivera was arrested, and so was Roxana. Prosecutors decided to charge Roxana as an adult due to the cold-blooded nature of the crime. Her parents chose to stay by her side, arguing that she suffered from mental illness and was influenced by 23-year-old Michael Rivera. Despite her tearful apology in court, Roxana Sikorsky was sentenced to up to 20 years in prison for her crimes. Roxana's actions were driven by infatuation, but what's the story behind the next kid on our list? Alyssa Bustamante. Elizabeth Alton, a 9-year-old girl, was tragically murdered by her 15-year-old neighbor, Alyssa Bustamante, in St. Martins, Missouri, on October 21, 2009. The murder appeared to be driven by Bustamante's fascination with violence and a desire to experience what it felt like to take someone's life. On the day of the murder, lured Alton into a nearby woods. Once there, she carried out the brutal attack, then buried Alton's body in a grave she had pre-dug 5 days earlier. She covered the grave with leaves to conceal it. Alyssa had a troubled upbringing, with with her grandparents gaining custody of her and her siblings in 2002 due to her mother's addiction and her father's imprisonment. By 2007, friends noticed concerning changes in her behavior, including a suicide attempt and disturbing social media content. After the murder, Bustamante wrote in her journal about the event, though she later tried to erase it. "I just killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them, now they're dead. I don't know how to feel at them. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the 'oh my god, I can't do this' feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kinda nervous and shaky though right now. Okay, I gotta go to church now. LOL. She was later indicted, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and armed criminal action, and received a life sentence. The next kid on our list shares a similar fate with Alyssa. Tyler Hadley. On July 16, 2011, in Port St. Lucie, Florida, 17-year-old Tyler Hadley murdered his parents, Blake Hadley and Mary Jo Hadley. A few weeks before the murders, Tyler told a friend he wanted to throw a big party after committing parricide, claiming it had never been done before. Shortly after noon, Tyler posted on his Facebook wall, "Party at my crib tonight, maybe." After Tyler's parents returned home, he hid their phones and locked their black Labrador in a closet. Around 5 p.m. on July 16, 2011, Tyler took 3 ecstasy pills and attacked his mother, Mary Jo, with a claw hammer. Hearing her screams, his father, Blake, rushed out and was also fatally attacked by Tyler. He then dragged their bodies into the master bedroom and spent 3 hours cleaning up. Tyler funded his party with his deceased parents' credit cards. Around 60 people attended, and some noticed a strange smell. During the party, Tyler confessed to his friend, Michael Mandel, who later discovered the bodies but stayed at the party for hours before reporting the crime. Tyler was arrested early the next morning after news of the crime spread. 3 years later, Tyler Hadley was convicted of the murders and sentenced to life in prison. He is currently serving his sentence at Gulf Correctional Institution. The next child on our list was so terrifying that his actions led to a change in the law. Willie Bosket. William James Bosket Jr., born December 9, 1962, is an American convicted murderer whose extensive criminal activities as a minor prompted New York State to change its laws, allowing juveniles as young as 13 to be tried as adults for murder and subject to the same penalties. On March 19, 1978, 15-year-old Bosket shot and killed Noel Perez on a New York City subway train. 8 days later, he and an accomplice killed Moises Perez in another attempted robbery. They also shot a transit employee and committed 2 other armed robberies. Bosket was tried in family court, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to a maximum of 5 years in the Goshen Youth Facility, the longest sentence allowed by law at the time. A year into his sentence for 2 murders, Bosket escaped from the youth facility but was caught after 2 hours. Tried as an adult for the escape, he was sentenced to 4 years in state prison. He was released in 1983, but 100 days later was arrested for robbery and assault, and subsequently assaulted court officers while awaiting trial, leading to a 7-year prison sentence. Despite being acquitted of court officer assaults and avoiding a 25 to life sentence under New York's habitual offender law, Bosket continued his violent behavior in prison, leading to multiple convictions. By 1989, he had received 3 25 years to life sentences for assaulting and stabbing correction officers. If you thought that was all, the next kid on our list will keep your mouth hanging. Paris Bennett. On February 4, 2007, 13-year-old Paris Lee Bennett murdered his 4-year-old sister, Ella Bennett, in Abilene, Texas, by stabbing her 17 times. Paris's motive was his resentment towards their mother, Charity Bennett, believing that taking away one of her children would cause her the most emotional pain. Charity Bennett, mother of Paris, and Ella Bennett, is the daughter of Kyla Claire Bennett, who was controversially acquitted of conspiring to murder her husband. Charity struggled with drug addiction, which worsened shortly before Paris murdered Ella. Paris had shown violent tendencies from a young age and manipulated a babysitter to leave the house on February 4, 2007, before stabbing Ella 17 times. He called a friend and then 911, pretending to be insane. Paris was charged with capital murder in juvenile court, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to 40 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Diagnosed as a psychopath, he will be eligible for parole in February 2027. Paris's actions were terrifying, as were those of the next kid on our list. Joshua Phillips. Joshua Earl Patrick Phillips was 14 when killed his 8-year-old friend and neighbor, Madeline Ray Clifton, in November 1998. On the day of the murder, Phillips was home alone when his neighbor, Madeline Clifton, came over to play baseball. During the game, Phillips accidentally hit Clifton in the eye with the ball, causing her to bleed and scream. Panicking, Phillips dragged her into his house, hit her with a baseball bat, and hid her under his bed. Later, discovering she was still alive, he cut her throat and stabbed her in the chest, killing her. Clifton's disappearance was reported, and Phillips participated in the search for 6 days. On November 10th, his mother found Clifton's body in his room, leading to Phillips's arrest and confession. Prosecutors disputed parts of his story, suggesting a possible sexual motive, though no evidence of assault was found. Phillips was tried as an adult. His lawyer called no witnesses for the defense, leading to a quick conviction of first-degree murder and a life sentence without parole, as he was ineligible for the death penalty due to his age. He is currently incarcerated at the Cross City Correctional Institution. Philip, and the next person on our list, committed murders for the most trivial reasons. Brenda Spencer. On January 29, 1979, 16-year-old Brenda Spencer, who lived across the street from Grover Cleveland Elementary School in San Diego, California, opened fire on the school. The principal and a custodian were killed, while 8 children and a police officer, Robert Robb, were injured. On the morning of January 29, 1979, Brenda Spencer began shooting from her house at children, waiting for Principal Burton Ragg to open the gates to Grover Cleveland Elementary. She injured 8 children, starting with 9-year-old Cam Miller, and killed Principal Ragg and custodian Mike Suchar. Police officer Robert Robb was also wounded. Further casualties were prevented when police moved a garbage truck to block her line of fire. After firing 36 shots, Spencer barricaded herself in her home for several hours. During this time, was asked why she committed the crime, and this was her response: "I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." She eventually surrendered after being promised a Burger King meal. Charged as an adult, she pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder and assault with a deadly weapon, receiving a life sentence with a chance of parole after 25 years. As of 2025, she remains in prison. Spencer can be described as wicked, just like the next kid on our list. Evan Miller. At 14 years old, Miller brutally killed Cole Cannon in July 2003 in 5 Points, Lawrence County. Miller and Colby Smith planned to get Cannon, a 52-year-old neighbor, drunk and rob him. Miller and Smith stole baseball cards and $350 from Cannon, then beat him with a baseball bat and set his mobile home on fire. Tried as an adult, Miller has served 14 years in state prison. During the murder, Miller told Cannon, "Cole, I am God. I've come to take your life." After the incident, Miller became the youngest person in Alabama to be sentenced to life without parole and soon asked the judge to reconsider the ruling. A 2012 U.S. Supreme Court case from Alabama questioned whether sentencing a 14-year-old to life without parole is cruel and unusual punishment, violating the 8th and 14th Amendments. The Supreme Court ruled that Miller and others convicted of capital murder as juveniles must be resentenced, allowing inmates across the nation to have their cases reconsidered. In 2021, Miller's sentence was reaffirmed. In resentencing him to life without parole, the judge considered Miller's exposure to violence, a history of abuse for him and his siblings, his drug use, and his mental health issues, including multiple suicide attempts from as early as age 5 or 6. If you thought that was the peak, the next kid on our list will shock you even more. Anissa Weier and Morgan Geyser. On May 31, 2014, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, 12-year-olds Anissa Weier and Morgan Geyser lured their friend Peyton Leutner into a wooded area and stabbed her 19 times to appease the fictional character Slender Man. The attack took place during a game of hide-and-seek in Davids Park. Weier and Geyser pinned down Leutner and inflicted severe wounds, 2 of which were to major organs. After the attack, they told Leutner to lie down while they pretended to seek help, but she managed to drag herself to a nearby road where a cyclist found her and called emergency services. Surgeons operated for 6 hours to repair the critical injuries. 5 hours later, Weier and Geyser were apprehended by police near Steinhaffel's furniture store about 4.9 miles from the attack site. They were carrying the knife used in the stabbing and claimed they were traveling to meet Slender Man in the Nicolet National Forest. During interrogations, Geyser showed no empathy, while Weier expressed guilt, both stating the attack was to appease Slender Man. Leutner left the hospital 7 days after the attack and returned to school in September 2014. Weier and Geyser were found not guilty by reason of mental disease. Weier received a sentence of 25 years to life, while Geyser was sentenced to 40 years to life. Similar to these children, the actions of the next kid on our list was influenced by external factors. Christopher Pittman. Kristen Avery Pittman, born Christopher Frank Pittman on April 9, 1989, is a convicted child murderer. At the age of 12, she killed her grandparents, Joe and Joy Pittman, on November 28, 2001. The case gained national attention due to her young age and her defense that the antidepressant Zoloft influenced her actions. Pittman had an argument on the school bus, choked a fellow student, and later disturbed someone playing piano in her church. On the night of November 28, 2001, after being paddled by her grandfather for attempting to leave her room, room, Pittman went into her grandparents' bedroom and murdered them with their own shotgun, which she had been taught to use. After the murders, she set fire to the house using a candle and papers. Pittman took her grandparents' car, their guns, her dog, and $33 and left. She was picked up after getting stuck 2 counties away. Before confessing, she claimed a large black male had kidnapped her after murdering her grandparents and setting fire to their house. When she ultimately confessed, she proclaimed that her grandparents deserved what they got. Pittman's father testified that the incident occurred 2 days after Kristen's Zoloft dosage had been doubled. Pittman received a sentence of 30 years to life in prison. Pittman might have escaped life, and so did the next kid on our list, Eric Smith. Eric M. Smith is an American murderer who, at the age of 13, sexually abused and murdered 4-year-old Derek Joseph Roby in Steuben County, New York. On August 2, 1993, 13-year-old Eric Smith was riding his bike to summer camp when he saw 4-year-old Derek Roby walking alone to the same camp. Smith lured Roby into a wooded area, strangled him until he passed out, dropped a large rock on his head, and sodomized him with a small stick. He then poured Kool-Aid from Roby's lunchbox into his open wounds. Roby's cause of death was determined to be blunt trauma to the head with contributing asphyxia. His body was found 4 hours after his mother reported him missing. On August 8, 1993, Smith confessed to his mother, who informed law enforcement. The case made national headlines due to the ages of the killer and victim. Smith was tried as an adult, becoming the youngest murder defendant tried as an adult in New York State history. Extensive medical testing found no explanation for his violent behavior. Smith, often bullied for his appearance, was diagnosed with intermittent explosive disorder by a defense psychiatrist, though the prosecution's expert diagnosed him with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. On August 16, 1994, Smith was convicted of second-degree murder. On November 7, 1994, he received the maximum sentence available for juvenile murderers at the time, a minimum of 9 years to life in prison. In contrast to Smith, the next child on our list will leave you absolutely astounded. Lyle and Eric Menendez. Joseph Lyle Menendez, born January 10, 1968, and Eric Galen Menendez, born November 27, 1970, known as the Menendez brothers, are American siblings convicted of the 1989 murders of their parents, Jose and Mary Louise Kitty Menendez, at their home in Beverly Hills. On August 18, 1989, Lyle and Eric Menendez attempted to buy handguns, but ended up purchasing Mossberg 12-gauge shotguns due to issues with Lyle's driver's license and a waiting period. On August 20, 1989, they entered the den of their Beverly Hills mansion, where their parents, Jose and Kitty, were watching a movie. They shot Jose 6 times and Kitty 10 times, reloading to deliver the fatal shot to her face. After the murders, they disposed of their blood-stained clothes and buried the shotguns. They attempted to create an alibi by going to a movie theater and then a festival. Upon returning home, Lyle called 911, claiming to have discovered their parents' bodies. The police did not test them for gunshot residue, and the brothers falsely claimed they were elsewhere during the killings. The crime scene was described as extremely brutal, with blood and brain matter splattered throughout the room. Lyle and Eric Menendez were charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances for lying in wait, making them eligible for the death penalty and conspiracy to murder. In their first trial, the juries were unable to reach a verdict, resulting in mistrials. In a second trial, they were convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. While the Menendez brothers were terrible, the next kid on our list is downright terrifying. Barry Dale Lukaitis. On February 2, 1996, 14-year-old Barry Dale Lukaitis killed his algebra teacher and 2 students at Frontier Middle School in Moses Lake, Washington. He then held his classmates hostage until a gym coach subdued him. On the day of the shooting, Lukaitis dressed as a Wild West-style gunslinger, wearing a black duster and armed with a .30 caliber hunting rifle and 2 handguns belonging to his father. He walked to his school and entered his algebra classroom during 5th period, where he opened fire, killing 2 students, Arnold Fritz and Manuel Vela Jr., and critically injuring another student, Natalie Hintz. Lukaitis then fatally shot his algebra teacher, Leona Kairas. Teacher and coach John Lane entered the classroom upon hearing the gunshots and found Lukaitis holding his classmates hostage. Lane volunteered as a hostage, but then grabbed the weapon from Lukaitis and wrestled him to the ground, assisting in the evacuation of students until police arrived. Dozens of rifle casings were found on the classroom floor. In June 1996, the Court of Appeals at Spokane was to decide whether 15-year-old Barry Lukaitis should be tried as an adult or juvenile. On September 24, 1997, he was convicted of multiple charges, including first-degree murder, and sentenced to 2 life terms plus 205 years without parole. In 2017, he was resentenced to 189 years in prison following a Supreme Court ruling on juvenile life terms. The previous stories so far were unsettling, but the next one will make you question everything. Craig Price. Craig Chandler Price, born October 11, 1973, is an American serial killer who committed his crimes in Warwick, Rhode Island, between the ages of 13 and 15. He was arrested in 1989 for 4 murders, a woman and her 2 daughters that year, and another woman 2 years earlier. Price's first murder occurred on July 27, 1987, when he broke into a nearby home and stabbed 27-year-old Rebecca Spencer 58 times. 2 years later, at age 15, Price murdered 3 more neighbors on September 1st, 1989. High on marijuana and LSD, he stabbed 39-year-old Joan Heaton 57 times, her 10-year-old daughter Jennifer 62 times, and inflicted 30 stab wounds on her 7-year-old daughter Melissa. Price calmly confessed to his crimes after being discovered. Arrested a month before his 16th birthday, he was tried and convicted as a minor. By law, he would be released when he turned 21, and his criminal records would be sealed till then. Price bragged that he would make history upon release. Craig Price was denied parole in March 2009, and his release date was set for May 2020. In Florida, he was involved in a prison fight in 2009, leading to a correctional officer being stabbed by a handmade shiv. In 2017, he was accused of stabbing fellow inmate Joshua Davis, resulting in a 25-year sentence in 2019. He is currently incarcerated at Union Correctional Institution in Rayford, Florida. If you thought Price was shocking, The Last Kid is even more disturbing. Lionel Tate. Lionel Alexander Tate, born January 30, 1987, was convicted of first-degree murder for the 1999 battering death of 6-year-old Tiffany Unick in Broward County, Florida, while imitating professional wrestling moves. On July 28, 1999, Tate was left alone with his cousin, Tiffany Unick, who was being babysat by Tate's mother, Kathleen Grossett Tate. While the children were downstairs playing and watching WWF SmackDown, Tate's mother called for them to be quiet. About 45 minutes later, Tate informed his mother that Tiffany was not breathing. Her legs, feet, and neck had severe bruises, comparable to those from a speeding car. Tate was sentenced to life imprisonment. Under Florida statutes, the jury had to convict Tate of first-degree murder, even if they did not believe he intended to kill or injure anyone, as child abuse includes any intentional act that could result in physical injury. Critics argued that convicting preteen children without proving intent was unacceptable, and Tate's sentence led to criticism of Florida's juvenile justice system. In January 2004, a state appeals court overturned Tate's conviction due to his mental competency not being evaluated before trial, leading to his release on 1 year's house arrest and 10 years probation. On May 23, 2005, Lionel Tate was charged with armed burglary, battery, armed robbery, and violating probation. He accepted a plea bargain in March 2006 and was sentenced to 30 years in prison for violating probation. In February 2008, Tate pled no contest to the robbery and received an additional 10-year sentence to be served concurrently with his 30-year term. He is currently imprisoned at the Hamilton Correctional Institution Annex. Thanks for watching. If you found this video shocking and thrilling, be sure to check out other similar and amazing videos on the screen. I'll see you in the next video.